When I tried to be intimate with my wife, she told me to use my hand. I just accepted it, but the next day she asked me for money and I said, "Get a job. I'm not your bank." It was late, a Wednesday night. I had just finished another long day of work, deadlines, phone calls, the usual routine. By the time I got home, dinner was already cold and my wife, Melissa, was sitting on the sofa, endlessly scrolling on her phone, as she always did. I sat next to her. I tried to talk a little, but her answers were short, almost mechanical. Yes, okay, sure, nothing more. For weeks I had felt this wall being built between us. We lived under the same roof, but the closeness had disappeared. The small touches, the hugs, the easy laughs we once had vanished. Still, a part of me wanted to believe it was just a phase, that things would get better if I made an effort. So that night, I decided to try to get closer again. I leaned towards her, touched her arm lightly, and whispered, "Come to bed with me." It was not a demand, just an invitation. I was looking for connection, that intimacy that a husband and a wife should share. She did not even look at me. Her eyes remained glued to the bright screen in her hand. Then, without a pause, without a hint of consideration, she said, "Use your hand." At first I thought I had heard wrong. I blinked, waiting for her to repeat it, perhaps for her to laugh as if it were a bad joke, but she did not. She simply kept swiping the screen as if she had not said the most hurtful thing a man can hear from his wife. That phrase hurt more than any insult. It was not just a rejection, it was a lack of respect, a way of telling me that I was not worth her time, her touch, or her effort. My chest tightened and my throat felt dry. I wanted to say something, to scream, to ask her what had happened to us, but instead I lay back in silence. My pride prevented me from begging for what should have been natural in our marriage. Inside, however, the silence was deafening. My mind was spinning. I remembered the early days of our relationship, when we could not keep our hands off each other. Back then we would stay up all night talking, kissing, making plans for the future. She used to look at me as if I were the only man in the world. Now, I was just a secondary character in her routine, someone who paid the bills while she treated me like a stranger. I went to bed alone that night. I stared at the ceiling, the faint hum of the fan filling the room, while my wife stayed in the living room, probably still glued to her phone or watching some shallow reality show. The emptiness of that bed told me more about our marriage than any conversation could have. And the thing is, it was not about sex. It was about what that rejection symbolized. It was about respect, about companionship, about the bond that was supposed to exist between us. Her words told me that that bond was broken and that I had been too blind, too patient, too hopeful to admit it. Lying there, I felt anger mixed with something colder, clarity. I realized that love without respect is worthless. That night she might have thought she had shut me up, that she had dismissed me with a cruel phrase, but she actually gave me the push I needed. It was the moment I stopped seeing her as my partner and started seeing her for what she had become, a woman who saw me as an ATM, a roommate, and nothing more. I did not explode. I did not throw things. I did not even confront her at that moment. I just remained silent because I knew that silence would be my sharpest weapon later on. That was the breaking point. The night my marriage went from a fragile hope to an undeniable truth. The night my wife told me to use my hand, and I decided in my mind that soon she would be the one left with empty hands. The next morning I woke up early, as usual. I showered, got dressed, and left for work while Melissa was still in bed. I did not say much before I left, partly because I did not trust myself to speak without my voice betraying the frustration of the previous night. That phrase, "Use your hand," still echoed in my head like a bad song you cannot get rid of. By the time I came home that afternoon, I had convinced myself to stay calm. No fights, no begging for attention, just routine. Dinner was silent. She barely asked me how my day was, and, honestly, I did not bother to give her many details either. But as I was clearing the table, she suddenly looked at me and said casually, as if nothing had happened the night before, "Hey, can you give me some money? I need about 300. I looked up, confused. "For what?" I asked. She shrugged as if it did not matter. "Just things I need. Do not worry about it." That is when it dawned on me. Less than 24 hours before, she had rejected me in the coldest way possible, as if I did not matter as a husband, as a man, as her partner. And now, without hesitation, she had no problem treating me like her personal bank account. I put down the plate and stared at her. Melissa, get a job. I am not your bank. The look on her face was priceless. Her eyes widened. Her jaw tightened as if she did not expect me to say no. She had become so used to this cycle, rejecting me when she wanted, asking for money when she wanted, and I always gave in. But not this time. She scoffed, trying to downplay it. Wow, so now you are going to be a cheapskate. You cannot even help your own wife. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how ridiculous it sounded. Help, Melissa. Helping is when there is mutual respect. You do not even look at me anymore, and the only time you speak with energy is when you ask for money. If you want respect, start giving it. She rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. But you are exaggerating. That word, exaggerating, almost made me lose my temper, but I held firm. My voice remained calm, steady, almost colder than I expected. I am not exaggerating. I am just sick of being treated like a walking wallet. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. She knew I was not kidding. The truth was that I had spoiled her for too long. I had allowed this imbalance to grow, always giving, always providing, without demanding respect in return. She thought she could reject me as a man, but still expect me to be her provider. That night, the house felt different. There were no screams, no broken plates, no dramatic arguments like you see in the movies. Just tension, a heavy, silent tension. She sat on the sofa with her phone again, but this time I did not even bother to look at her. I sat at the table, checked some bills, and silently made a mental list of what had to change. And the thing is, it was not about the money. I had enough to give her $300, $500, or even $1,000 without a problem. It was about principles. It was about not allowing her to continue treating me like a resource she could exploit without giving me anything in return. The hypocrisy was as clear as day. She had no problem denying me as a husband when I sought her closeness, but the second she wanted something, I was suddenly supposed to deliver as a provider. That double standard was over. When I finally went to bed, she stayed in the living room longer than usual. Maybe she was sulking, maybe she was writing to a friend about how cheap I had become. I did not care. For the first time in a long time, I felt a change within me. Saying no was not just about denying her the money. It was about reclaiming my own respect. As I lay in bed, I knew she was not going to let it go. Melissa was the type to push until she got what she wanted, but deep down I had already decided. This time she was going to learn that I was no longer her safety net. That moment, the clash between her request for money and my refusal, was the beginning of everything that followed. It was the crack that showed me how far apart we had drifted and how blind I had been. She thought she could control the game. What she did not know was that I had just changed the rules. I used to believe that marriage was built on foundations that could not be shaken: trust, respect, intimacy, companionship. But sitting in my own kitchen days after that fight, looking at a woman who barely looked at me unless she needed something, I realized that those foundations had cracked a long time ago. I just refused to see it. Melissa and I were not always like this. At first, we were inseparable. We met at a friend's party, and from the first night, there was an undeniable chemistry. She had a laugh that filled the room, a way of looking at me that made me feel like the center of her universe. Back then she wanted me, not just what I could provide. We would stay up until dawn talking about everything: our dreams, where we wanted to travel, how we would raise our children, the kind of home we would build together. Those nights felt endless, full of promises. I remember our first apartment. It was small, barely with space for a sofa and a bed, but we did not care. We ate cheap takeout on the floor and laughed about how one day we would look back and say, "Remember when we thought this was hard?" She used to hug me from behind when I cooked, kiss my neck while I washed the dishes. Those little moments mattered more than anything. But somewhere along the way things changed. It was not sudden. It was slow, subtle, like a candle going out without you noticing until the room goes dark. At first it was excuses. She was too tired for intimacy. Then she would fall asleep on the sofa night after night, saying she was watching TV. I ignored it. Work stress, maybe hormones, maybe just a rough patch. I told myself that all couples go through ups and downs. The truth was harder to face. She was pulling away from me piece by piece. When I look back, all the signs are there. The phone she never let go of, the way she smiled at text messages but rarely smiled at me, the sudden girls' nights that seemed to multiply. I tried to ignore it. I tried to believe she was still the woman who once could not wait to be near me. But ignoring the truth does not change it. It only prolongs the damage. What hit me the hardest was not just the lack of intimacy. It was how transactional everything became. Melissa stopped seeing me as her husband and started treating me as her provider. The only time she seemed interested in a conversation was when she wanted something. Money for clothes, for her nails, for some trip with her friends. And like a fool, I kept giving, thinking that maybe if I made her life easier, she would find her way back to me. But the more I gave her, the less she respected me. That became crystal clear after that moment when she told me to use my hand one night and asked me for money the next day. Those two moments were not separate, they were connected. She had stopped giving me the one thing a wife is supposed to share with her husband: affection, love, intimacy. Yet she had no shame in demanding money as if it were her right. I started replaying memories in my head, connecting dots I had avoided for years. I remembered how when we were dating she always said she admired my work ethic. She loved that I was ambitious, that I wanted to build a stable life. But maybe what she really loved was the security that came with it, not me as a man. Maybe I had mistaken admiration for my effort with genuine love. The worst part is that I allowed it. Every time I took out my wallet instead of demanding respect, I reinforced the idea that money was all I was good for. I cannot even blame her completely. I had been part of the problem. I started noticing the imbalance everywhere. When was the last time she cooked a meal for us without sighing or rolling her eyes? When was the last time she asked about my day with genuine interest, not just out of routine? When was the last time she hugged me without expecting something in return? I could not remember. Our marriage had become a business arrangement, except I was the only one paying the price. She provided less and less while I carried more and more. One night, sitting alone in the bedroom, while Melissa was laughing on the phone in the living room, I realized something that shook me. I did not miss the physical intimacy as much as I missed the respect. The sex, the hugs, the kisses were important, yes, but what broke me was the absence of respect. A man can live without constant affection, but no man can live being treated as if he were disposable in his own home. I remember my father's words years ago, before I got married. He told me, "Son, a woman can stop loving you, but if she stops respecting you, it is over." I did not understand it. Back then I thought respect and love were the same thing. Now, looking at the empty side of my bed, I finally understood. Love can fade, but respect should never disappear. Without it, you do not have a partner, you have a leech. From that moment on, I stopped seeing Melissa through rose-colored glasses. I saw her for what she had become, a woman who valued my money more than my presence, who thought that being a wife meant she could reject me emotionally, but still expect me to finance her life. And the hypocrisy did not stop there. I started noticing little things that made the picture even uglier. She complained about how hard it was to be at home, but she refused to get a job. She wanted freedom, but not responsibility. She wanted the luxuries of being married without offering the basics of being a wife. Everything became so clear once I forced myself to stop making excuses for her. Our marriage was exposed for what it really was, a contract she thought I could not walk away from. But she was wrong. That realization no longer filled me with sadness. It filled me with determination. I was not going to beg her for respect. I was not going to argue for intimacy or plead for attention. If she thought I existed only to finance her lifestyle, she was about to find out what it felt like when that safety net disappeared. I had reached the point where my silence was no longer weakness, it was strategy. I did not need to yell at her or list all the ways she had failed me. Life was about to teach her in the most brutal way possible. For the first time in years, I felt clear-headed. It was no longer about saving the marriage, it was about saving myself. The beauty of revenge is that it does not always need fire, screams, or chaos. Sometimes the coldest moves are the most effective. After years of giving without receiving, after being humiliated by the woman who was supposed to respect me, I decided I was not going to fight with her in the way she expected. No yelling, no desperate pleas, no arguments about what went wrong. My revenge was going to be simple. I would cut her off completely from what she valued most, my money and my attention. It started silently. I did not announce anything. I did not tell her, from now on, things are going to change. I simply stopped being her provider. Melissa came to me a few days after the request for $300 that I had rejected. this time asking for a smaller amount, $80. She said she needed it for groceries. In the past, I would have given it to her without a second thought. This time I took out my debit card, put it on the counter, and said dryly, "Here, buy what we need for the house." Nothing more. Her face contorted with annoyance, but she took the card. Later, when she returned, I checked the receipt. For the first time in our marriage, I examined every item. Sure enough, hidden among the bread and milk were charges for cosmetics and some very expensive candles. I did not say a word, but I took the card back and locked it in my desk drawer. From then on, I did the grocery shopping myself. That was step 1, control the money. Step 2 was time. Melissa had gotten used to me going out of my way to be home when she wanted, making sure her needs came first. But I started to redirect that energy towards myself. I took extra hours at work, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to create more distance. I started going to the gym again, something I had given up after years of routine and exhaustion. I even reconnected with old friends, having beers after work instead of rushing home to a woman who barely looked at me. When Melissa noticed, she did not say much at first. She tried the passive-aggressive route. "You are working late very often. What? Do you not like being at home anymore?" I just shrugged. "I go where I feel respected." She did not like that answer, but she did not press it. Step 3 was attention, or rather, the lack of it. Melissa thrived on being the center of my world. She expected me to notice when she bought new clothes, when she changed her hairstyle, when she got her nails done. I had always given her those compliments, thinking it was part of being a good husband. Now silence. She could walk in with a new dress, and I would not even look up from my laptop. She could spend hours on her makeup before going out with her friends, and I would not offer a single word. That silence drove her crazy faster than I expected. She started seeking validation. "Do you notice anything different?" she would ask. I would look up casually and then go back to what I was doing. It was not cruel, but deliberate. If she wanted to treat me like an ATM, then I would treat her like a stranger. The cracks began to show. Melissa was not used to this version of me. She was used to control, to having me eating out of her hand, always eager to please, always ready to provide. But now I was distant, calm, focused, and the more indifferent I became, the more restless she became. One Saturday night, she tried to reignite her old dominance. She got dressed up, told me she was going out with her friends, and stood at the door waiting for me to ask her where she was going. I did not. I just said, "Do not forget your keys." And I went back to watching the game. When she came home later that night, she tried to provoke me again. "You did not even ask who I was with." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Why would I? You have made it clear that I am not part of your plans." That silenced her. My cold revenge was not about punishing her with theatrics. It was about letting her live with the weight of her own choices. Every time she looked at me and saw the man she had disrespected, now refusing to play her game, it chipped away at her confidence. And here is the part that really got to her. She started to feel the financial consequences. With me managing the money directly, she lost access to the easy lifestyle she had built for herself. No more impulse buys, no more salon appointments at my expense, no more vacations with her friends. When she complained, I gave her the same answer every time. "Do you want money? Get a job. I am not your bank." The more I repeated it, the angrier she got. She accused me of being controlling, cheap, even abusive, but deep down she knew the truth. I was not depriving her of survival. The bills were paid. The house was maintained. There was food on the table. What I stopped funding were her luxuries, the extras she felt entitled to simply because she wore a ring. And the beauty of it all, watching her crumble. At first she tried to act tough. She would slam doors, roll her eyes, mutter insults under her breath. But when none of that affected me, she changed tactics. Suddenly, she wanted to be affectionate again. She would sit next to me on the sofa, put her hand on my leg, try to give me a goodnight kiss. I did not reject her outright. That would have given her power. It would have shown her that I still cared. Instead, I let my indifference speak. I would let her kiss me, and then I would go back to what I was doing. No passion, no fire, just emptiness. That emptiness broke her more than anger ever could have. Weeks into this silent campaign, she finally exploded. One afternoon she screamed, "You have changed. You are not the man I married." I looked at her calmly and said, "No, Melissa, I am finally the man I should have been all along. The one who does not tolerate disrespect." That was the nail in the coffin. My revenge was not about yelling or exposing her to the world. It was about taking back control, showing her that the man she thought she could trample on was gone, replaced by someone who valued his own respect more than her comfort. In the end, the revenge was not just for me. It was a lesson she could not ignore. When you treat a man like an object, do not be surprised when he stops being there for you. And the irony, the colder I became, the more she wanted me. But by then it was already too late. Regret does not show up with a dramatic explosion. It seeps in slowly, like water through cracks, until it floods everything. For Melissa, it started with little things. She would notice that I was dressing nicer before leaving the house, wearing cologne I had not touched in years. She would see me going to the gym, losing the belly I had gained after years of stress. She would see me laughing with people on the phone, co-workers, friends, with voices full of an energy she had not heard from me in a long time. The man she had once dismissed, ridiculed, and treated like a walking bank was coming back to life. Except this time he was not coming back for her. At first she tried to win me over with guilt. "You do not spend time with me anymore." I shrugged. "You did not want my time when I offered it to you." Then she tried affection. She would wrap her arms around me in the kitchen. She would whisper in my ear like she used to, but the spark was gone. I would smile politely, remove her hands, and go back to what I was doing. She felt it. The emptiness, the distance that no amount of forced sweetness could bridge. Finally, she tried desperation. One night out of nowhere, she burst into tears. "I do not want to lose you. I know I have been selfish. I know I push you away. Please, just give me another chance." Her tears did not move me. Years ago, they might have. Back then, I would have wrapped my arms around her, told her everything would be okay, and buried my own pain just to keep the marriage alive. But this time I saw the truth behind those tears. They were not for love, they were for fear. Fear of losing the comfort, the stability, the man she thought would always be there no matter how badly she treated him. I looked her in the eye and said, "Melissa, you told me to use my hand when I wanted to be with you. That night something broke in me. You cannot undo that. You cannot erase the lack of respect. I am not going to spend the rest of my life begging for crumbs of love from my own wife." She sobbed harder, grabbing my arm as if I might disappear if she let go. "But I love you." I shook my head. "No, you love the life I gave you. You do not love me." And just like that, I walked out of the room. That was the beginning of her downfall. I continued to live my life with discipline and focus. I worked harder, but not for her, for me. I started saving aggressively, investing, planning a future where I did not have to carry a dead weight. My friends started to notice the change. They would say, "Man, you look different, happier." And I was, not because I had found someone new yet, but because I had finally found myself again. Melissa, meanwhile, was falling apart. Without my financial support for her luxuries, her lifestyle crumbled. She had to cut back on shopping, cancel spa days, stop going out so often. She started to look tired, stressed, bitter. She complained constantly, but her complaints no longer had power over me. The cruel irony was that as she became less vibrant, I felt more alive. Women started to notice me again, at the gym, at work, even at the supermarket. Simple conversations would turn into smiles, and for the first time in years, I felt desirable again. Melissa noticed too. One night she saw me texting, and she snapped. "Who is that?" I did not even hide it. "Someone who actually enjoys talking to me." The look on her face said it all. Panic, jealousy, regret. She knew she had lost control, but I was not interested in revenge through cheating or petty games. My revenge was my transformation, my rise. She had gambled on belittling me, assuming I would always be there, no matter how low she dragged me. She lost that bet the moment I stopped playing by her rules. Months later, I met someone new. Her name was Claire. She was smart, kind, independent. Everything Melissa had stopped being years ago. Claire did not see me as a wallet or a provider. She saw me as a man. We would talk for hours, laugh at the smallest things, and when she touched me, it was not out of obligation. It was out of genuine desire. I did not hide Claire from Melissa. I was not showing her off, but I was not keeping secrets either. When Melissa saw us together for the first time, I could see her face crumble. She tried to hide it, but the regret was all over it. She realized that the man she had once scorned was now wanted, appreciated, and loved by someone better. That was the final nail in her coffin. In my life, she cornered me in the kitchen one night and whispered, She will never love you like I did. I laughed, shaking my head. You are right. She will not, because she actually respects me. Something you never did. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, but I no longer felt pity. I felt nothing. Her regret did not change the fact that she had treated me like a stranger in my own home. She had denied me intimacy and used me as a bank. Now she was left with the ruins of a life she thought was secure, while I had rebuilt mine stronger than ever. And that is the thing about regret. It always comes too late. She had her chance when I was devoted, loyal, willing to give her everything, but she wasted it. By the time she realized what she had lost, I had already moved on. I had already risen from the man she tried to break to become someone she could no longer reach. So when people ask me now if I regret leaving her behind, my answer is simple. No, the only regret in this story belongs to her.